American didn't call them a marriage. And I think it's a compromise in my mind. I have a senator in the Senate who's a friend of mine who has a spouse the same sex as himself, and they have 2 adopted children. And the 2 adopted children were on the floor of the Senate this morning. And I recognize that there are 5 other states or 6 other states, some through the judiciary and others that have done it through legislative act with a different policy. But if they're going to do it in Maryland, they're not going to do it with my vote. At the same time, the people want to filibuster, then what I'm going to do is try to bring them out to a vote so that the majority, whatever the bill is, the majority, whatever the will is, can prevail. Because again, I have different differences. I have 5 kids. I have pro-choice children, and I have 1 child that had, my grandchildren were marching the Break to Life yesterday in Washington, D.C. So I mean, you let kids, you educate them, and you encourage them to do what they think best. And that's what we kind of do in this state. Is try to let everybody have free thinkers. And like I say, my prediction is the issue will pass the Senate, and I'm not sure what will happen to it in the House.
I think we will have another emotional debate in the Senate, similar to what we had last year. I think it was enlightening for all sides, and that people came to the table with very strong opinions. But we conducted that discussion with great dignity. I thought it was one of the Senate's shining moments as far as bringing people with very different backgrounds and opinions together to be able to discuss it. At the end of the day, it should have been settled for this term, because the people really haven't changed in either house. And that we shouldn't be, it should come back after the next election, after people have a choice where the votes are on the record and people can decide if that's an overriding issue or they want to send somebody back who's made that decision. But I don't think that's the way this will play out. Very well, at the end of the day, if it does pass, if it does pass the Senate, it does pass the House. All likelihood is that this will go to referendum. And when it goes to referendum, the history's been, at least to date, that any state that's put this to referendum has voted for any change that marriage is between a man and a woman. And so, as I was on a panel yesterday, said, well, Maryland may break the street. Clearly, opinions sharply divided. I will say the people that, while there are very strong feelings on both sides, the people that are the most organized and that have a tremendous amount of passion, I think will be the side that says that, no, we're not going to change the existing law. But we'll see. I think at the end, I think there's an excellent chance that this will be decided by the citizens of Maryland.
Let's give a round of applause for these 2 gentlemen.
Thank you both very much. We have come to the end of our program, basically, and I think we ought to give a round of applause to Ted Meyerson and his team for putting together a fascinating. Now it's time for you all to go to work. You're going to be meeting with your legislators. You're going to be talking to them one-on-one and in groups about what your concerns are, and to kind of lay all that out for you. I'm going to bring up 2 of your members to talk to you about how that's all going to work. Don Solars and Tammy Bresnahan. Here.
I'm not on the program now, but I just couldn't let the moment go without thanking our moderator and our MC. It was really great of you. Really, thank you very, very much.
Good morning. I'm Don Sillers. I'm Vice President for Legislation of United Seniors of Maryland. And this morning with me is Tammy Bresnahan, who's the Associate Director of Advocacy for AARP Maryland, which I understand is one of the larger organizations in United Seniors. She joined AARP in November, and prior to being on the AARP staff, she worked for the Maryland Department of Human Resources for over 26 years, where she was the Director of Government Affairs and responsible for all legislative and regulatory issues. Programs at Department of Human Resources are administered through the local departments of social services. Tammy is a graduate of Salisbury University and serves as the university's Vice President of the Board of Alumni Affairs. And she was recognized by 3 different governors for outstanding public service to Maryland citizens. And, Tammy,
good morning. Yes, I started working under Harry Hughes, Governor Harry Hughes, but he didn't recognize me then. I was too young. I heard somewhere the most important political office is that of a private citizen. You are the best voice for your issues, for our issues. Legislators listen to their constituents, and at AARP we do too. As you may know, AARP has 4 areas of focus or priorities, identified primarily by the membership and what is important to them, and that they age with the quality of life that is respectable and dignified. We know that Marylanders 50+ are concerned about their retirement, health needs and services, and rising cost of those services. These are basic to living, but they are increasingly threatened, and it does not give them a peace of mind, independence, or a quality of life. That's why strengthening health and economic security is the overarching theme at AARP Advocacy. I believe we must meet that challenge head-on, and with your help, we will. I'll start off with the first priority, my money. Protections of Social Security and Medicare must be protected. AARP works with policymakers to help them understand that preserving Social Security and Medicare is important to our members. Con artists and identity thieves are dangers that underscore the need for effective oversight of law enforcement. We believe in an effort to maintain what we have earned, consumers need adequate safeguards in a fast-changing world. So at the state level, we work with policymakers, the Attorney General's office, to make sure that laws are enforced, and if needed, laws passed that protect our investments and our money from those con artists and thieves. We will support bills that protect individuals and their hard-earned money and investments. The second priority for AARP is my health. As you have heard over and over again, AARP believes that Marylanders should have more support to live independently, and individuals with chronic health conditions and disabilities and their caregivers need better and more access to an array of long-term services and supports to help them stay in their homes as long as possible and live more rewarding lives. We know that this is what Marylanders want, and it is often less costly than institutional care. Marylanders need and should have more supports to live independently. We believe, and when it's needed, the safety net must stay sturdy for people of all ages and all incomes, families, and we will work to ensure those protections stay in place and that the application process is streamlined and seamless. AARP Maryland has been working with partners and policymakers to make sure that that money is appropriated for home and community-based services. The governor, as you have heard by Secretary Lawlah, I call her Senator Lawlah, has included funds for home and community-based care in the budget. That funding is being threatened as we speak. There is the lobby, the nursing home lobby is working against home and community-based care. We need to make sure that legislators know that aging in place is important to you and not to cut those funds or revert those funds or do anything with those funds. And in some cases, more funds are needed because we know it costs less. AARP is working with partners to support legislation that includes one revenue stream. That revenue stream includes increasing the tax on cigars and smokeless tobacco. Some of that revenue generated will support home and community-based services for Marylanders. As they need those supports, we know it'll be there. AARP, Maryland has worked very closely with policymakers on the development of the health benefit exchange, making sure it is user-friendly. We will continue to work with policymakers and state agencies to ensure that as individuals age, these services are in place for older Marylanders and their families. The third goal, my home and family. A top goal for AARP is to ensure that as you, as a consumer, are protected. Our advocacy takes many forms. We want to make sure we are treated fairly in legislation and rulemaking and get our members the information to make good, sound choices. On the forefront of this is our work with utilities. AARP Maryland is vigilant with utility companies. We are making sure rates are fair, markets are transparent, and services are reliable and stable, but most of all, responsive. That is why we took on BG&E when they wanted to charge for smart meters, and that's why we have intervened in the Pepco rate case. And finally, the fourth and final priority for, not the final one, but the fourth priority that we look at for AARP, we believe as Marylanders get older, they want and need to stay involved in a full range of community life. Volunteering, working, participating in civic and faith-based activities, socializing, simply taking a walk, all enhance a quality of life and contribute to a physical and mental health well-being. AARP supports policies that help people keep connected to their communities as they get older, as they age. That includes a wide range of housing choices and health choices, making it easier and affordable to get around. AARP Maryland joined other partners to support the Maryland Transportation Alliance. AARP supports more funding for mass transportation and paratransit services like minibuses so people can get where they need without having to drive if they can't. And in closing, we believe these priorities bring you, us, a sense of security. I retired, I started another job. I was 52 a week ago. I want to live as long as my mom did, 86. And I want my life to be just as good and long and healthy and be able to stay in my home when I get sick or I need proper health care. Families are stronger when they age with a peace of mind about their health and their financial security, confident that they can get support and services they need to stay independent their whole lives. Institutions, other facilities are not supposed to be the first line. They're supposed to be the last choice. These will lead to a better life for all of us. As you meet with your elected officials today, make sure that they know that financial security and protections and access to health care and living independently and consumer protection are important. They need to tackle these policies now, right now. Right now, as I said before, the money allocated for the governor is trying to be lobbied away to the nursing home industry. And we need you to talk to your elected officials about keeping that money in place and making sure that that money is there when you need it, when you need to stay in your home. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Despite the fact that you are now retired, from our perspective, you are still very young. We now move on to the final phase of our program. Those of you who picked up the blue booklets as you came in will find two colored pieces of paper here. The first is, I'm not quite sure what shade of yellow this is, but it's labeled 2012 Talking Points for Caucuses. These represent the priorities of the United Seniors at the present time. Copies of these talking points were sent to the elected officials and delegates and senators, along with a note that we intended to have these form the basis of discussion today. So if you can look these over, you'll also notice that there is very much of an overlap between what Tammy was talking about as AARP priorities and the priorities of United Seniors, particularly in the aging in place, in healthcare, and in financial security. You also had in your booklet a blue piece, and this is a real blue, that gives the caucus locations. Everybody except Baltimore City will have to go out into the elements and also then through the security of the legislative offices. There are two delegations, Southern Maryland, Calvert, Charles and St. Mary's, and Howard County, that will be in the Miller Center office building. That means going across two streets, left, and then entering the Senate office building. Be sure you have your photo identification available, and going through the standard things of going through federal detectors. You will then be directed to the right to the two office buildings, to the two Senate meetings. The rest of us will be going to the House office building, which means that you go out across the street, up past the office building, make a left before crossing grade, and enter there, and you will be then directed to then go through security and you go through meeting rooms. Some of our caucus leaders have already left to go over to make sure everything is right at the caucus locations, but quite a few of them are still here. And if you want to, I'll have them identify themselves so that you can hook up with them. Okay, the first is Anne Arundel, and that will be in room 142 of the Lowell House office building. And Virginia Crespo here is the leader of that delegation. Baltimore County is in room 180. Lowell office building. Oh, she's here. She's in the back of the room. The Eastern Shore, Carolina, 6 Northridge, Kent, Greenland, Somerset, and Worcester, 318.
Oh, no problem.
I think everybody has the drill, and good luck with your